Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this session of Spokane Public Schools Keep Learning series on KSPS. Today's lesson is for third graders and anyone else who would like to join us. My name is Sharon Withrow, and I am an instructional coach at Bemis Elementary in Spokane Public Schools. I get to be your teacher for our lesson today, and I am so glad that you are participating with me. If you didn't see our previous lessons, they can be found on the KSPS website. Today, we will be learning about how readers ask and answer questions as they read. We will be using this text, which is nonfiction or informational text, titled Mountains: Surviving on Mount Everest by Michael Sandler. Readers, to participate along with me today, you will need a piece of paper and a pencil. I'll pause for just a moment while you go get what you need. Welcome back, readers. Are you ready? Let's begin. As I mentioned before, our goal today is to think about how readers ask and answer questions as they read. We are reading a nonfiction text, which means we are reading to learn and gain new information. As we look at this text, we will find information in all sorts of places. We'll see it in the text, we'll see it in the photographs, and the other visual information that's provided. As readers, we need to think about what we're reading and let it sink in. And as we do that, our brain starts to form questions. As we're reading today, we want to pay attention to those questions that come up in our brain and then seek for answers in the text. A way to help us do that is to keep this phrase in our head. As we're reading, I want you to think about, I wonder. And what is it that you are wondering? Let's go on. Readers, let's take a minute to prepare our response paper. Take your piece of paper and fold it in half 3 times. Once you open it up, it should look like this. You should have 8 different sections on your paper. Once you've done that, you're going to label each side. On the left side, we're going to label I wonder. This column is where you will record the questions that come to your mind as we're reading. On the other side of the paper, we're going to label that column, Now I Know. This is where we get to record the information that we find as we're reading the text to answer our questions. I'll give you just a moment to finish filling that in. Readers, let's get started. Here's our text, Mountains: Surviving on Mount Everest by Michael Sandler. Climbing Mount Everest. The clock showed almost midnight. The temperature was freezing. Icy winds roared by. A group of people huddled in the darkness on a rocky ridge. In moments, they would begin the final stage of a dangerous journey. They were climbing to the top of Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain. Among the climbers was Tembas Sherpa. Just 2 weeks before, Tembas had celebrated his 16th birthday. Now he was trying to survive in one of the world's most extreme places. Making it to the top of Everest was Tembas' dream. He would be the youngest person ever to reach the summit, which is 29,035 feet high. Readers, that page made me have a question. Readers, as I was reading, I noticed in my brain that all of a sudden I thought, I wonder why they call Mount Everest an extreme place. I'm going to record that question on my chart. If you have a question that you would like to write down, you can do that also, or you can use mine. As we're reading together, we'll be stopping to add to our chart, especially if we find a spot where we know we found the answer. Let's go on. What are mountains? Mountains are a type of tall landform. They rise high above the area around them. Mountains are taller than hills. They can rise thousands of feet in the air. They are found all over the world, even beneath the sea. A group of mountains is called a range. The biggest mountain range in North America is the Rocky Mountains. The Andes in South America is the world's longest mountain range. Mount Everest, the mountain Tembas was climbing, is part of the Himalayan mountains. The name Himalaya means home of snow. The Asian range is the world's highest. It includes 9 of the 10 tallest mountains on Earth. Readers, if you have had a question come to mind, take a moment to write it down on your response form. Mountain conditions. As Tembas approached Everest summit, survival became harder and harder. Mountain conditions get more extreme the higher a person climbs. Air contains less and less oxygen as the altitude increases. Breathing becomes nearly impossible. Thin air can cause headaches and dizziness at 10,000 feet. Higher up, it can be deadly. Humans cannot survive for long at the top section of mountains like Everest. Hurricane-force winds can reach 130 miles per hour. Temperatures can plummet to negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Blowing snow makes it hard to see. Tembas was headed here. Frostbite can happen when it's so cold that hands, feet, and other parts of the body freeze solid. Frostbite can cause people to lose fingers and toes, even their noses. Readers, did you catch what I caught in that last section we read? I think we found the answer to my question. My question was, what makes Mount Everest so extreme? While we were reading, it told us about why mountaintops are so difficult to survive in. Some of those details help me answer my question. I'm going to go ahead and write my response right here in my Now I Know column on my chart, because with reading on, I was able to find the information in the text. Here's the answer I found. Mount Everest is extreme because of the high altitude. It is difficult to breathe and can make you dizzy. There are also lots of cold and strong winds. Finding that information helps me to better understand why Mount Everest is more extreme than here where we live. Let's read on. Why do people climb mountains? People climb mountains for many reasons. Some enjoy the thrill of being high above the clouds. Others like the challenge of testing their skills. For decades, however, reaching the top of Everest was a test that no climber could pass. The first attempts to climb Everest were made during the 1920s. Again and again, the climbing teams stopped short of their goal. Avalanches, storms, sickness, and exhaustion brought them to a halt. Then, in 1953, 2 climbers finally succeeded, Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. Hillary was from New Zealand. Norgay was a Sherpa from Nepal. Tembas' mistake. Tembas had tried to climb Everest before. It ended, however, in failure. I didn't have enough training or proper equipment, Tembas said. He was almost at the summit when his oxygen supply ran out. Without oxygen, Tembas couldn't think clearly. He made a terrible mistake. He took off his gloves to tie his boots. His fingers froze. Tembas suffered frostbite on both hands. He had to turn back just 70 feet from his goal. The next time around, however, Tembas was prepared. He had trained hard. He had the right equipment thanks to his classmates and teachers. They had raised money for his trip. Survival equipment. A climbing suit to protect against cold. Gloves to keep hands warm and dry. Goggles to protect eyes from the sun's harmful rays and from reflection off snow. Oxygen mask and tank for breathing at the highest altitudes. Ice axe to help climb slopes and break up ice. Climbing ropes to climb up slopes. Trekking poles to help a climber stay balanced. Mountain boots with spikes that dig into snow and ice. Camp to camp. Tembas' second try began in April 2001. Mount Everest sits between Nepal and Tibet. There are several different routes to the top. Temba would take a route from the north, the Tibetan side. Climbers move from one camp to the next higher one and then rest for a while. At each camp, their bodies get used to the higher altitudes. Temba spent several weeks moving between camps with his team. At Camp 3, the team waited for a break in the weather. Winter was over, but there had been a series of severe snowstorms. Getting caught in a snowstorm farther up the mountain would be deadly. The climb up Everest officially begins at base camp. Climbers stay in tents there so their bodies get used to the lower levels of oxygen. The climb along the ridge. On May 20th, Tembas' team reached Camp 4. Then the climbers headed out on the great ridge leading to the summit. Temba plunged his axe into the ice walls, pulling himself up. He steadied himself against 50-mile-per-hour winds, yet he climbed higher and higher. Temba had to move fast or die. Darkness stopped him before he got to Camp 5. His team had gone ahead. Luckily, Temba found a tent. He spent the night frightened and alone. The next day, Temba rejoined his team. They reached Camp 6, one day's climb from their goal. Climbers use aluminum ladders to cross deep cracks in the ice called crevasses. The crevasses are constantly opening and closing, so it's very dangerous. Readers, I've returned back to my chart because that section we just read created another I wonder question in my head. I wonder what it would feel like to be all alone on a mountainside by myself. It tells us that Temba was afraid, and I think I would be afraid too, but that's something I definitely want to think more about. So I'm going to add that question to my chart. I wonder what it was like to be on the mountain all alone for a night. How would I have felt? I have some ideas about the answer to this question, but I don't know my answer all the way yet, so I'm going to continue reading and return to this later. Reaching the top of the world. Just before midnight, Temba began his final climb. A headlamp lit the darkness. An oxygen mask helped Temba to breathe. Sometimes he'd stop to rest or to change oxygen bottles. Just after sunrise, Temba reached Mount Everest's summit. He was higher than anyone else on the planet. Temba planted 2 flags. One was for his school, the other was for Nepal. I felt so happy, he said. It is dangerous for climbers to spend more than 10 minutes at the top of Everest. The body needs to get to a lower altitude where there is more oxygen. Readers, as I turned to this page, I noticed something right away that created a question in my mind. Look at that illustration with me down below. Do you see the tents and the trash everywhere? This picture made me wonder, what is happening on that mountain? Let's switch to our chart real quick and jot down our thinking. Readers, I have a new question to add to my chart. Why does the mountain and camping area look so messy? I'm excited to read on and see if I can find the answer to my question. Let's return to the text and see. Will the mountains survive? Temba survived in the mountains. Now he wants to make sure the mountains survive. The world's mountains face many different threats. Trash is one problem. For a while, Everest was called the world's highest garbage dump. The mountain was littered with tons of trash that climbers left behind. Batteries, bottles, and empty oxygen tanks. Many climbers didn't have the time or strength to carry these things back down with them. The caption on the photo says, "Climbers have left garbage on Everest since 1921. Now, people are trying to clean up the mess." Global warming is another problem. As Earth gets warmer, mountain glaciers are melting. Himalayan lakes are swelling up with water. When they flood, mountain landscapes will be changed forever. In 2005, the snowcap on Tanzania's Mount Kilimanjaro melted for the first time in history. Readers, we found the answer to the I wonder question. Why does the mountain and camping area look so messy? Now, in our Now I Know column, we can add what we've learned. It's messy because the climbers are tired from the journey and often leave things behind instead of taking it back down the mountain. This is an example of where we can find the answer in the text. Let's keep reading. After the climb. When Tembas came down from Everest, he was thinking about food, not fame. After weeks of camping, he was starving for home cooking. Still, when he flew home to Kathmandu, a huge crowd was waiting. Tembas couldn't believe it. "I had never seen so many cameras. All of them were pointed at me," he said. Despite the attention, Tembas focused on his schoolwork. He needed a good education to achieve his other dream of starting a school in Dolaka. Will Tembas succeed? Only time will tell. If you've survived on Everest, however, and reached the top, no goal seems too high. Readers, that was a fascinating text. I learned so much about Mount Everest and the challenge that people take on to climb it. I do have more questions. One of them is definitely, did Tembas ever open that school? I'll have to do some research on my own to find that out. Reader, now that I've finished our text, this is when we get to go back and look over our thinking and see if there's anything else we need to do. As I look at my I wonder chart, I see the 3 questions that I wrote down. I'm hopeful that you have these questions and hopefully more on your chart too. Remember, if you run out of room, you could always flip over to the back side. As I look at my Now I Know column, I see that there's still a question I haven't found the answer to. Right here. This question is something that I need to use my brain and the text to answer. I will definitely take a minute later to fill in this response. Readers, I would like you to take some time to look back over your questions, answer the ones you can, and make a plan for how you could find the answers to the ones that you couldn't. Readers, remember, it's super important to wonder and ask questions as you read. By doing so, you build understanding and learn more about the world around you. Thank you so much for joining me for this lesson today. I look forward to seeing you on our next lesson on KSPS. And readers, remember, keep wondering and keep learning every day. Bye.